Have you ever wondered why someone you trusted, someone you genuinely cared about, ended up betraying you? Maybe it was a close friend who suddenly turned their back on you, or a coworker who stabbed you in the back when you least expected it. Or perhaps it was something more personal, a family member or even a romantic partner who broke your trust. Betrayal is one of the most painful human experiences, and yet it happens so often that we almost expect it. But why does it happen? What drives people to act in ways that hurt others deeply? And more importantly, how can understanding this help us protect ourselves, or even prevent such betrayals from happening in the first place? Before we dive into this, I want to take a moment to connect with you. Where are you watching this video from? Are you tuning in from the bustling streets of New York City, or maybe somewhere quieter like Colorado Springs? What time is it there right now? Morning coffee time, or late-night reflection? Let me know in the comments. I love hearing where this message finds you. Now, let's start with a story. Imagine this. Sarah has been working at her company for 5 years. She's dedicated, hardworking, and always willing to go above and beyond for her team. Recently, she was up for a promotion, a position she had been eyeing for months. Her manager promised her that if she delivered excellent results on an upcoming project, the promotion would be hers. So Sarah poured everything she had into that project, late nights, weekends, even sacrificing personal plans. The day finally came when the decision was announced. But instead of Sarah getting the promotion, it went to Jake, a colleague who hadn't contributed nearly as much but seemed to have some kind of special rapport with the higher-ups. At first, Sarah felt shocked, then angry, and eventually betrayed. She couldn't understand why her efforts weren't recognized. Was it jealousy, favoritism, or something deeper? This scenario might sound familiar to many of you. Whether it's in the workplace, friendships, or relationships, betrayal cuts deep because it shakes the foundation of trust, the invisible glue that holds our connections together. But here's the thing. Betrayal isn't always as straightforward as it seems. Sometimes, the reasons behind it aren't malicious or even intentional. To truly understand why people betray others, we need to dig beneath the surface, and no one did this better than Carl Jung, the Swiss psychiatrist and psychoanalyst whose work continues to shape modern psychology. Jung believed that human behavior is driven by unconscious forces, parts of ourselves that we don't fully understand or acknowledge. These hidden aspects of our psyche can lead us to act in ways that surprise not only others but also ourselves. Let's explore this idea through another example. Think about two friends, Alex and Jordan. They've known each other since college and have shared countless memories together. One day, Alex confides in Jordan about a sensitive issue, a financial struggle he's facing. He trusts Jordan completely, believing that his friend will keep the information private. But weeks later, Alex overhears someone else talking about his situation. It doesn't take long for him to realize that Jordan must have told others. When confronted, Jordan apologizes profusely, claiming they didn't mean any harm. It just slipped out, they say. On the surface, this looks like a clear-cut case of betrayal. But what if there's more going on beneath the surface? According to Carl Jung, every individual carries what he called a shadow, a part of the psyche that contains repressed emotions, desires, and impulses. The shadow represents the darker, less acceptable sides of ourselves that we try to hide from both others and ourselves. In Jordan's case, their betrayal might stem from unresolved insecurities or fears within their own shadow. Perhaps they felt threatened by Alex's vulnerability and subconsciously wanted to distance themselves from it by sharing the information. Or maybe they sought validation from others by appearing knowledgeable about Alex's struggles. Whatever the reason, the betrayal wasn't necessarily premeditated. It was a manifestation of unconscious forces at play. This brings us to an important question. How do we recognize these hidden dynamics in ourselves and others? Jung argued that self-awareness is key. By bringing the contents of our shadow into conscious awareness, we can begin to take responsibility for our actions and avoid unintentionally hurting those around us. For instance, if Jordan had taken the time to reflect on why they felt compelled to share Alex's secret, they might have realized their own discomfort with vulnerability and addressed it before causing harm. Of course, not all betrayals are accidental. Some are deliberate acts driven by envy, resentment, or ambition. Take the classic tale of corporate espionage, where employees leak confidential information to competitors for personal gain. While these actions may seem purely selfish, Jung would argue that even here, the shadow plays a role. The person committing the betrayal might be grappling with feelings of inadequacy or fear of failure, which they attempt to compensate for by undermining others. Their betrayal becomes a way to assert power or control over a situation where they feel powerless. To illustrate this further, let's revisit Sarah's story from earlier. Suppose Jake, the colleague who received the promotion, knew deep down that he wasn't as qualified as Sarah. Instead of acknowledging his limitations, he might have unconsciously sought to sabotage her chances by ingratiating himself with management. His betrayal wasn't just about securing the promotion, it was also about soothing his own ego and proving his worth, even if it meant stepping on someone else to get there. So far, we've explored how the shadow influences betrayal, but there's another layer to consider: projection. Jung coined the term projection to describe the process by which we attribute qualities or emotions we dislike in ourselves onto others. This psychological mechanism can create misunderstandings and conflicts that ultimately lead to betrayal. For example, imagine a couple arguing about finances. One partner accuses the other of being irresponsible with money, despite evidence suggesting otherwise. Upon closer examination, it turns out that the accusing partner is actually struggling with their own financial habits but refuses to confront them. By projecting their guilt onto their spouse, they create tension that could escalate into betrayal if left unchecked. Projection operates subtly, often without us realizing it. It's easy to see how this dynamic could play out in friendships, workplaces, or families. A boss who feels insecure about their leadership skills might project incompetence onto a subordinate, leading to unfair treatment or dismissal. A sibling who resents their achievements might accuse the other of arrogance, creating rifts that fester over time. Understanding projection allows us to identify when we're unfairly blaming others for traits we haven't accepted in ourselves, and hopefully, to address those issues before they cause lasting damage. As we continue unpacking the complexities of betrayal, it's crucial to remember that healing and prevention require effort on multiple levels. On a personal level, cultivating self-awareness is essential. Ask yourself, are there patterns in my life where I've betrayed others, intentionally or not? What emotions or insecurities might be driving those behaviors? Journaling, therapy, or meditation can help illuminate the shadowy corners of your psyche. On a relational level, open communication is vital. If you feel betrayed, resist the urge to react impulsively. Instead, approach the situation with curiosity rather than accusation. Try asking questions like, "What made you decide to act this way?" Or, "How were you feeling when this happened?" You might discover that the betrayal stemmed from a misunderstanding or unmet need rather than malice. And finally, on a societal level, we need to normalize discussions about mental health and emotional intelligence. Too often, betrayal is dismissed as a character flaw without exploring its underlying causes. By fostering environments where people feel safe expressing their vulnerabilities, we reduce the likelihood of shadow-driven actions spiraling out of control. Let's shift our focus to the role that cultural and societal norms play in shaping these experiences. Betrayal doesn't occur in a vacuum. It's deeply intertwined with the values, expectations, and pressures of the world around us. Carl Jung believed that while the individual psyche is unique, it's also influenced by what he called the collective unconscious, a shared reservoir of archetypes and symbols that connect all human beings. This concept helps explain why betrayal feels universally painful, yet manifests differently depending on cultural context. Consider this. In some cultures, loyalty to family or community might take precedence over personal ambitions. A person who prioritizes their own goals over group harmony could be seen as betraying deeply held values. On the other hand, In more individualistic societies like the United States, betrayal might arise when someone violates boundaries of independence or self-reliance. For example, imagine a young professional turning down a lucrative job offer to stay close to their aging parents. While this decision might be celebrated in collectivist cultures, it could be viewed as a betrayal of one's potential in a culture that prizes career success above all else. These cultural nuances highlight an important truth. Betrayal isn't just about actions, it's about perceptions. What feels like a betrayal to one person might not even register as such for another. This disconnect often stems from differing expectations shaped by upbringing, social conditioning, and life experiences. Understanding this can help us approach conflicts with greater empathy and patience. Now, let's talk about rebuilding trust after betrayal, a process that requires courage, vulnerability, and mutual effort. Trust is fragile, and once broken, it takes time to mend. But healing is possible if both parties are willing to engage in honest reflection and accountability. Drawing again on Jung's insights, we can frame this process as a journey toward integration. When betrayal occurs, it fractures not only relationships but also our sense of self. The betrayer may struggle with guilt or shame, while the betrayed grapple with feelings of anger, sadness, or confusion. Both sides must confront these emotions head-on to move forward. Here's a practical framework for rebuilding trust. First, acknowledge the harm caused. This step is non-negotiable. Without genuine recognition of the pain inflicted, reconciliation cannot begin. If you're the betrayer, resist the urge to justify your actions or minimize the impact. Instead, listen deeply to the other person's perspective and validate their feelings. Saying something as simple as, "I understand why you feel hurt, and I'm truly sorry," can go a long way. Second, identify patterns and triggers. Reflect on what led to the betrayal in the first place. Was it a fleeting moment of weakness or part of a recurring behavior? Are there unresolved issues, whether personal or relational, that need addressing? For instance, if financial stress contributed to dishonesty in a relationship, finding healthier ways to manage money together can prevent future breaches of trust. Third, set clear boundaries moving forward. Rebuilding trust requires transparency and consistency. Both parties should agree on specific steps to ensure accountability. This might involve regular check-ins, open communication channels, or even involving a neutral third party like a counselor or mediator. Finally, practice forgiveness, not as a one-time event, but as an ongoing commitment. Forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting or excusing harmful behavior. Rather, it's about releasing the hold that resentment has on your emotional well-being. As Jung famously said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." By bringing awareness to the root causes of betrayal and actively working to heal, we reclaim agency over our lives and relationships. To bring this discussion full circle, let's return to Sarah's story from earlier. After processing her initial anger and disappointment, Sarah decided to have an honest conversation with her manager about the promotion. During their meeting, she expressed her frustration while also seeking clarity on the decision-making process. To her surprise, her manager admitted that favoritism had played a role, but they also acknowledged Sarah's exceptional contributions and promised to support her growth within the company. While the betrayal still stung, Sarah realized that holding on to bitterness would only hinder her progress. She chose to channel her energy into improving her skills and building stronger alliances at work. This outcome underscores an important lesson. Betrayal, while painful, can sometimes serve as a catalyst for growth. It forces us to examine our priorities, strengthen our resilience, and redefine our boundaries. And while it's natural to fear being hurt again, shutting ourselves off from connection altogether robs us of the richness that relationships bring to our lives. Before we wrap up, I want to leave you with a thought-provoking question. How do you define loyalty? Is it unwavering support, no matter the circumstances? Or is it the ability to hold each other accountable, even when it's uncomfortable? Your answer might reveal more about your values and your capacity to navigate betrayal than you realize. Thank you for joining me on this deep dive into the psychology of betrayal. If you found value in this video, please give it a thumbs up and share it with someone who might benefit from these insights. Don't forget to subscribe for more content exploring the complexities of the human mind. And remember, wherever you are and whatever challenges you're facing, you have the power to transform pain into growth. Until next time, take care and keep shining your light.